1 year ago, I knew nothing about running, but suddenly went from running just a casual 5k a week to completing the New York City Marathon. Hey, I'm Jack, an average everyday runner hoping to help others learn a little bit more about running. Today, I'm going to share 5 lessons that I've learned after 1 year of running, totaling over 2,000 kilometers. Let's get into it. The first lesson I learned about running is you need to be patient. Coming in as a complete newbie runner, I was very naive, thinking I would see exponential improvements as a result of just getting into running in the first place, when in reality, that doesn't quite happen. And a key component to learning this lesson of being patient was the fact that the 2023 New York City Marathon was well over 6 months into the future. It's also when I started to enjoy delayed gratification, obviously working for over 5.5 months before I even reached the opportunity to hit the goal, but seeing those small wins during that time compound to a monumental feat in completing my first marathon. Continuing on with this theme of being patient, I also put way too much pressure on myself when it came to my first marathon, hoping I'd achieve a time of around 3 hours, 45 minutes, or even gold standard being 3 hours, 30 minutes. When in reality, I had nowhere near the running base to even make that possible, and was on such a steep learning trajectory to even run and face the starting line of a marathon with minimal running experience. But now, fast forward to May in 2024, and I'm seeing way better results as a result of having that base built up all the way through my last year of running. Like many other sports and hobbies, running is also a journey that you need to undertake. You're not going to see those results suddenly happen overnight. Frustrating, but I draw a lot of similarities from running to life in the fact that many times I'd be stubborn and pig-headed, wanting results almost instantaneously. But looking back at my journey now, over the course of my 27 years on being on this planet, I've realized that those small decisions or those small pieces of effort I put in 10 years ago have led me to this point now, where I'm recording this video and sharing my journey of completing a full year of running. And only 12 months into this journey of taking running seriously, really starting to see myself improve. The second lesson I learned was that consistency is critical to your running success. I was fortunate enough in my first year of running to not really experience any real setbacks that caused me to be sidelined for a period of time. In my mind, I only had one clear goal last year, and that was to complete the New York City Marathon. Looking back last year, I also had another YouTube channel that I was running before starting my running journey, but wanted to commit myself entirely to the process of training for a marathon and running it. This also included the workshops that I attended as part of my squad last year, as we gradually worked our way up in distances, achieving the small milestones along the way that would seal our ticket towards New York to run the marathon. And also, along this running journey, seeing myself physically improve as a result of dedicating myself to the training. For instance, when I first started seeing 14-kilometer midweek long runs appear on the training schedule, wondering how the heck I was supposed to juggle that as well as full-time work at the same time, and all the extra educational commitments we had to do on the side. But those 14k midweek long runs would still appear on my training session all the way in the lead up towards New York. However, noticing myself being able to complete them with relative ease towards the end, which was really cool to see. My consistency to the training program last year particularly helped when it came to my long runs and I was starting to feel fatigued towards the end of a training block. As much as my body was sore and I could think of every single excuse to come up with on a cold winter's morning here in Melbourne, I still managed to get out, and it still helped me towards my goal of getting to the starting line. And also, as a creature of habit, once I have a set goal or a set training program or agenda, I know that I'm one person to hate seeing any red or cross marks appear on that specific plan. So made every single effort to continue to have my running put in the same time slot of each day to have green appear across the week. The third lesson was running doesn't always go to plan. While it didn't overly hamper my ability to train for the New York City Marathon, I still had my own niggles and injuries to deal with. My first niggle or setback that I had actually occurred in my first week of training, where I had worn an old pair of Vans that had actually caused my peroneal tendons on the side of my foot to get inflamed. causing me to miss the next 2 weeks of training before our first workshop, which was back then only 10Ks, but to me felt like the end of the world and thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to complete this marathon. The second niggle or setback that I still deal with to this day, 1 year on in my running journey, was shin splints. As runners, we tend to know what good pain is and what bad pain is, and we're usually able to distinguish whether or not to continue on with a run or to stop it completely. Going back to last year, when I really knew nothing about what good pain or bad pain felt like, would be a bit pig-headed and push through that initial onset of that niggle with my shin splints. Though one blessing I did have last year to stop me from being pig-headed was my coach, who would check in with me on a weekly basis. And although quite pig-headed, I still was open and transparent with how my body was feeling, letting him know that I was starting to feel the onset of shin splints for the first time, and pretty much being told that, Jack, it's okay to take a break and you can take a step back for a little bit, switching it to cross training for cycling and a bit of rowing in the meantime while I dealt with that. Continuing on with that cross training theme, for me, I felt like that was almost being a failure of a runner if I had to opt to do cross training to let my niggle settle for a bit. The biggest worry, thinking I'd suddenly lose all my fitness that I'd worked so hard over the last 4 months to train up for, only to get to the starting line of New York and not feel like I'd be able to complete it, when in reality, Jack was just thinking total BS back in 2023, and it didn't hamper any of my progress at all. In fact, I found that my cardiovascular endurance actually improved as a result of doing some cross training and letting my body heal that little bit. Those small sessions that I ticked off as part of my training compounded over time to get me to where I wanted. Another was with all the trials and errors that came around my nutrition for the marathon, finding myself being unable to stomach gels, breakfast not wanting to sit down, and just feeling all kinds of weird feelings in my guts that I'd never felt before. That was a journey, an experiment that I had to continue on through this journey to find what exactly worked for me. And the nutrition that I used in New York was far different to the one that I used in my second marathon in Ballarat just a few weeks ago. It was also such an insightful experience to experiment with my nutrition to see if I liked this flavor gel or if that consistency of a gel worked better for me, and continuing on to 2024, where I'm still experimenting with what nutrition options are out there to fuel me. And even after all the training and experimenting with the nutrition that I put my body through, still finding myself hitting the wall at 28 kilometers come the New York City Marathon and learning what it was really like to run a marathon. Running is an individual journey. Don't get me wrong though, going out for a run with friends is great, but ultimately, we're all running our own races out there. I'm not an elite or semi-pro runner looking to take out a world major anytime soon. I'm just an average, everyday person who grew up loving sport and everything exercise, who seems to have found a calling in running back in 2023. Early on in the journey, when I first got to meet the other members of the squad, I would always compare my times to the fellas in the squad and seeing what times they were posting on Strava and if I was doing any good, or noticing that their training was completely different to mine, but they were still running faster and doing longer distances than I was. This was in a position where I was completely naive and almost forgetting the little small improvements that I myself was making, but not really acknowledging that myself. So no matter what stage you're at in your running journey, you've got me and my corner of the internet cheering you on from here. The last and probably the most important lesson is it's improved my mental health. For me, running has become an escape from the chaotic world and also an escape from my chaotic thoughts. It's an opportunity for me to be present, to notice my heart rate or my breathing increase as a result of getting into an interval session, and also to take in all the beautiful surroundings around me. It was also one of the first times that I put myself first and made time for me in particular, to be with my thoughts and also a bit of doof doof music in between. The training that goes into a marathon has provided me with consistency for a long period of time when, compared to before my journey started with running, would rarely have enough of a schedule outside of full-time work to really work towards any goals that I'd set myself. Whereas all this training that I'm now doing for my marathons is working towards something that I truly love. And it's also inspired me to create systems that allow me to work on content like this to share with you all, and hey, even working towards setting up a potential business in the future and what that may look like. Who knows? And I can also see that these mental health benefits that running does provide has probably been a big reason to this recent running boom that we've seen in the world. Obviously, we all went through the world pandemic, and I feel like a lot of people have found running as something that they can do for themselves and to work towards something bigger than themselves, really. Whether it's for general exercise or working all the way up to achieving the 6 stars, it's so cool to be a part of such a big and growing community where there's all these little subgenres of running groups that appear and all these different sub niches on what running shoes people prefer and what gear they use. It's a really cool community that I never thought I'd see myself a part of. So there we have it. 5 lessons that I learned after my first year of running, completing over 2,000 kilometers. I hope you enjoyed today's video and my little insight into my first 12 months on my running journey. Let me know down in the comments below what's something you've learned along your running journey. I'd be keen to carry on the conversation down there with you all. And hey, if you're still sticking around with me to this point in the video, my little friend the YouTube algorithm recommends watching this one next. Why not check it out? I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.